personal level. But today is a podcast I've been waiting for a long time. And today's podcast is about the Hunter Biden computer and hard drive that I disclosed back in 2020, before the election. I believe it was October. Gave it to the New York Post. The New York Post published much of the contents of it. Very incriminating information. And they were banned from Twitter. And largely, the story was censored. And I was accused, along with others, of being a Russian agent by people like Brennan and some of the other co-conspirators in the whole Russian collusion situation. Well, the New York Times today, March 17th, 2022, much too little, much too late to save the American people from maybe the most disastrous president we've ever had. I don't know of one that has cost us more lives in such a short period of time than President Biden, whether you're talking about Afghanistan or the whole way he's handled the situation in Ukraine. Whatever side of the aisle you're on, this is much worse than it has to be because of his indecision, his apparent cowardice, his unwillingness to decide in any kind of timely way. He didn't do the sanctions, it was too late. If he ever gives them the MiGs, it'll be too late. The man's a complete disaster. You would have known that had the New York Times, the Washington Post, what we call the mainstream media, hadn't censored most of it from you, engaged in the fiction that it was Russian disinformation. Well, now the New York Times, again, much too little, much too late, on St. Patrick's Day 2022. People familiar with the investigation said prosecutors had examined emails between Mr. Biden, Mr. Archer, and others about Burisma and other foreign business activity. Those emails were obtained by the New York Times from a cache of files that appears to have come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in a Delaware repair shop. The email and others in the cache were authenticated by people familiar with them and with the investigation. Were authenticated. They were authenticated in October of 2020. They were published in October of 2020. They were available online in October of 2020. I put them in my Rudy'sCommonSense.com podcast in October of 2020, before the election. They obtained it now. And now they say they're authenticated when they published the stories about Russian disinformation debunked. How often was it referred to as debunked? The way they claim the issues of fraud in the election were debunked. No one's debunked anything. In fact, now, let's be clear. The New York Times admits in their circuitous, dishonest kind of way that entire group of emails were authenticated. Well, how about this one? How about this email? Why doesn't the Times print this one? It'll explain what happened to the money that Hunter was getting. You want to know? I mean, people want to know, how did Hunter get all this money? You want to know how Hunter got all the money? It's in the hard drive. It was there since before the election. It's about as clear as a bell. I held this up many times. I'd like to see this published in the New York Times. This is the same set of emails that they're relying on for that story. This is the same authenticated set of emails. Let me read to you what it says. This goes back to, it looks like Christmas Day 2018, 12/25/18, 1:41 p.m. You want to be exact here. We've got a message number. This is Hunter Biden to his daughter, and it describes extraordinarily clearly for a conspiracy, the exact agreement, the conspiracy that you have to prove that Joe Biden for 30 years was receiving bribes. I mean, there's 50 more pieces of evidence to prove it on the hard drive. But I don't know, you need much more than this? And why wouldn't this be published before an election if you have this about any candidate? This is Hunter Biden to his daughter. Not me, Hunter Biden. Hidden, covered up, which makes it even more evidence of guilt. I love all of you, but I don't receive any respect, and that's fine, I guess. Works for you, apparently. Obviously quite bitter, huh? I don't know. Maybe it's the many years of being used as a bagman when he was suffering from an addiction that his father, his narcissistic father, imposed on him because he couldn't find somebody else to do his dirty work. Could be. I love all of you, but I don't receive any respect, and that's fine, I guess. Works for you, apparently. I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. That's about when Joe first started taking bribes. Maybe a little earlier with his brothers. I don't remember which of the brothers was the first one, so I don't want to say the name until I go back and check. But one of the two brothers was the early lobbyist who was getting payments of money, and big articles were written about why is Joe so favorable here? Why is Joe so favorable there? Why was he Mr. What was it, MBNA Bank? All those stories. You can go back and look. It was, cheap little amounts of money. I don't know. I bet a lot of them do that. A lot of them are crooks. Well, for 30 years, Hunter has been paying the expenses of the family. Why would that be? Because Hunter was making money, not for Hunter, for Joe, to influence Joe. And Joe was acting accordingly. He was doing exactly what the money would seem to be directed for. You got to be stupid not to figure that out. They're not stupid. The people who cover this up, they're corrupt. Let's go on and read the rest. That's really good. It's really hard. I don't know what's really hard, but it's really hard. But don't worry, unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. That's the cut for the boss. This is, as I said, a crime family. I told you that well before the hard drive came out. I began alerting the New York Times and the American people to this starting, I first began to learn about it in November of 2018 when it was put in my lap as evidence that what was being claimed to be done in Russia was false, that the Russian hoax was a hoax, and that really it happened in Ukraine, and that people participated in it, including Joe Biden, and including making up false stories, getting false information, using the George Soros charity to help, using the American embassy as the conduit for it. And then they gave me the evidence of the bribe that I knew nothing about. I wanted to tell you, this is long before he ran for president. This had nothing to do with his running for president, as the liars said. It had to do with my defending my client aggressively and promptly. I should be vindicated there also. Everything I did is backed up by the same kind of information. And everything I did was as a lawyer for my client, for which I'm now being penalized because, I don't know, they have some kind of irrational pathological hatred for him. But in any event,